Welcome to the Divine Lifestyles Podcast. I'm your host, Tara Migalski. Together with my guest experts, I cover topics ranging from cutting-edge healing modalities to hormonal harmony, to nutrition and plant medicine, to mindfulness and spirituality. My goal is to educate and inspire so you can create your own divine lifestyle. It's time to dive inward, rewire your brain, and heal from the inside out. Welcome to the Divine Lifestyles Podcast. I am your host, Tara Migalski. Today, I am joined by the beautiful Bibi Brzozka. Bibi is a Vita certified sex, love, and relationship coach, international holistic sexuality speaker, energetic lovemaking guide, and Mind Valley teacher. Bibi has shared her teachings and practices with over 100,000 people across the world, sparking deep conversations about intimacy and sex in places where you least expect it. I am so happy to have you here today, Bibi. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. My pleasure being here.
Yeah, so your work is so fascinating and interesting. But before we dive into your work, I want to know a little bit more about you. Can you share with the audience what it was like growing up in Poland?
Yeah, indeed. I was born and I grew up in Poland, and it was time of communism. um, the communism ended when I was 11 years old, so I have quite a lot of vivid memories from this time. And yeah, there was very little material goods available. i I remember seeing a banana first time, I think, when I was like 8 or 9 years old. um and my parents maybe didn't have a lot, but at the same time, what I also remember is just really appreciating simple things. And for example, my parents, we still traveled, and we were sailing, and we were horse riding and skiing and playing tennis, and my parents were adventurous even with all those limitations. And I also remember receiving once a year a package from my uncle in Canada that would include all things like Snickers bars, Mars bars, oranges, bananas, those things that we didn't have. And I saw them once a year. And I remember how I was looking forward to that all year long. And I even remember that story very well, of dividing a Snickers bar in 7 parts so it could last longer. And then I would have it for the entire week. So I think, what comes from those times is appreciation, more less entitlement and more appreciation for things, and also being resourceful and being entrepreneurial. And yeah, it's even a part of my personality is that East European warrioress. Um, yeah, because since the very young age, I remember my parents would have to be very creative on how to, get food on the table and stand in line since 3 a.m. and then exchange with neighbors, and then just, to get a first car. It was like a whole thing. So, yeah, a lot of memories, a lot of learnings. And yeah, a big part of me is obviously a response to those times.
Yeah, and I'm Polish as well, but I've actually never been to Poland.
Mm.
Um, my family came over second generation.
Hmm.
So I'll have to come visit. I know you're in Poland right now. So my Polish sister, thank you for being here.
Yes, that's
So
exactly where
tell
I am. You're welcome to come and visit.
Yes. So I know that you have had an amazing journey to where you are now, living between Europe and Tulum. You've had a career, a corporate career. So tell us a little bit about what your life looked like before
Mhm.
you redesigned your life to what it looks like now.
Yeah. Yeah, so growing up in communism and seeing how difficult it was for my parents and for us to, first of all, travel. It was almost impossible to travel abroad We didn't even own our passports. You had to request them before each travel. And I also saw how little money they were earning, because my parents were earning literally an equivalent of $20 a month salary. So even when we finally did get to travel abroad, we had to almost bring our food with us because we couldn't really afford. And I still might love my parents for that, because they were so resourceful, and we would go sailing for 2 weeks around Italy and bring our own food, and we still would make it. But from this, I learned, okay, what I want to do is I want to have a possibility to travel the world and earn the money. And that's why this decision to study finance and banking. And I did graduate with a master degree from the best university in Poland. And then I actually got some other scholarships and ended up with 3 degrees. And then in that kind of, what looked like on the paper dream corporate job, and I would work with a big international company, and I was traveling with them literally all over the world. And I lived in Geneva, I lived in Sydney, I lived in New York, Mexico City, Brazil, Australia, and I was earning really, really well. And I also um, was never really fulfilled. That was never something that I was passionate about. Neither finance and banking, nor, just none of those things was really what would make my heart sing. And I was really sitting in the office for, 8 hours plus a day, doing something I had zero love for, and to earn money and to get my lifestyle. And while the lifestyle was great and the money was good, and I wasn't even overworking myself, that void and that lack of fulfillment started to become really, really uncomfortable. And that voice in my head that something is off would get louder and louder. And when it first started to come up, I kind of distracted myself with all things that I always say our society offers in abundance. Is it compulsive shopping, or nonstop traveling, or, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, especially in the times when I was living in New York, and it was exactly the time of the Sex in the City. Um, yeah, and all those kind of shallow pleasure gratifications. And it actually did work for a bit, especially that, again, I came from communism, so living in New York, being in a VIP, and being able to buy myself a Rolex and go out to all these amazing places was was in a way a big thing. But after a while, the whole excitement of it wore off, and all those distractions, including casual sex, stopped working. And yeah, for the first time, I paused and asked myself, what is it that I'm really passionate about? I know what I don't want. I don't know what I don't like. I don't want a corporate. I don't want 9 to 5. I don't want this. I don't want that. But what is it I really want? What's my life mission? What's my purpose? And all those questions were so overwhelming that got me straight into my midlife crisis, if you can say so, a little earlier, but yes. And I don't want to say I was depressed. I wasn't depressed, but I lost my mojo big time. And those there was the first time in my life that I was like, whoops, down. And it was the most beautiful and powerful portal for growth, because it's kind of challenging to completely redesign our life when we are in a comfort zone and when everything goes well, right? But it is easier to do that when things are uncomfortable. So yeah, I finally was able to quit the golden cage of almost 15 years in a corporate world. I quit. And I embarked on a personal discovery journey, and kind of did some of the things that everyone does. I went to India and went to Osho ashram. I did vipassana. I did ayahuasca, peyote, San Pedro. I did landmark type of course. I did positive psychology seminars and a few other things. And yeah, it started to open the door till I also ended up on a workshop where I awakened my sexual energy, and I had my first full body orgasm. And that was really a huge milestone in my journey, because from that moment on, I didn't even know exactly what was happening, but I started to experience full body energetic orgasms, in sex, but also outside sex. And yeah, something started to really, really shift. And, from that on, I started to explore this topic deeper.
So tell us a little bit more about the awakening of, to this new path, because you
Mhm.
talk a lot about, embracing your body, your authentic voice, and how sexuality is a
Mhm.
profound tool in developing these skills.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about this awakening and how you tapped into this sacred energy.
Yeah. Yeah. So awakening, I kind of, I'm always cautious about this word because I feel like it's a little overused these days. But what I'm going to say is the following: that full body orgasm, that energy orgasm, what essentially happens is that sexual energy, instead of just used for short climatic type of an orgasm, release, contraction, and I kind of call it slam bam, thank you mom, or um, just a quick pleasure oriented release, the energy went up. And when that energy goes up, and that energy kind of gets to a place where our consciousness sits, that's where our consciousness expands. A little simplified, but this is big part of teachings like tantra, that for Neotantra, that we can use sexual energy not just to procreate, not just to experience pleasure, but really for our self-realization, for expanding our consciousness, for shifting our perception of the world. And this is literally exactly what happened. And it was a similar experience to when I was on some of the medicinal plants. But the difference was that that energy lives in me. So it's not that I would wait from one ceremony to another. The energy started to circulate, and I started to experience, I would just simply call it a shift or perspective. And all of a sudden, I actually started to care. Wait a second, what do I want to do in life? I had some ideas before. I wanted to have a fashion brand. I started a costume brand. I was supposed to do a shoe company with another girlfriend. And then I was like, wait a second, does it really do good for the planet? Do I want to produce another shoe that is just going to pollute? And I was like, no, I think I want to do something meaningful. All of a sudden, I started to care about sustainability. And I started to care about the people that I was interacting with. I stopped taking drugs. I actually, shortly after, stopped even drinking alcohol. And I just become more mindful about everything. So I love to say that, how we do anything is how we do everything. And once that sexual energy really starts to move, and you can start tapping into it, your awareness will expand in every area of your life, not just sexuality. And those experiences of full body orgasm are really taking you to higher states of consciousness, into that meditative, beautiful, powerful states. And that again started to um, contribute to me wanting to dive deeper into those practices, and learn about myself more, and do more work on myself, and just do more good in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and for those that are listening that don't know what a full body orgasm
Mhm.
is, could you just explain it to
Yeah.
those listening?
hmm So, what we mainly are used to in our society is a friction oriented sex that is really targeted towards a specific goal, which is an orgasm, when we usually want to get there as fast as possible. Kind of a pornographic representation of sexuality, and, not surprisingly so, if it's really one and mainly source of sexual education we have access to, right? Now, there is another way of looking at sexuality, sacred sexuality, where you start to become aware of that sexual energy, that pleasure, that turn on, that tingling that you can feel in your genitals, that sexual energy. And if we actually take time, if we slow down, if we quiet the mind, if we are able to bring the meditative focus to sensations in our body, we can then start feeling that sexual energy. We can start cultivating it. We can start expanding it. And then we can start moving it away from the genitals all the way up. There's a channel along our spine, and then we can start circulating it. And different traditions will explain it differently. Inner flute, for example, in Neotantra, or microcosmic orbic in the Taoist tradition. And we kind of retain that energy. Instead of releasing it to procreate, we not only retain it, but we circulate it, allowing this, which allows us to energize, rejuvenate, again, go into those higher states of consciousness, come to those meditative states, and just, if we're with our partners, be in a beautiful divine union. Because again, you can then play with this energy for as long as you want. I like to say that, like, a good full body orgasm is at least 20 minutes. Um, yeah. So it really wakes up your entire, every cell of your body. It nourishes your soul. It really lights you up. It connects you to God, however you see and call God. And it's a really, elevating, nourishing, beautiful, high vibration experience.
Yes, yes. And I found it so interesting. So I actually went to a retreat with Bibi and was able to partake in her workshops. And I thought it was very interesting because when we went home and we were practicing, you know how you do the like, what number are you at? And you kind of bring it down. It's interesting because if you just have the orgasm, especially for men, they can feel very depleted.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about the theory of like kind of for men to not ejaculate, but just to kind of stay at what is it,
Yeah.
an 8, I think you call it?
Yeah. Yeah, so especially in the Taoist tradition, in Neotantric tradition too, there is a belief, a point of view, that once a man has this explosive ejaculatory type of an orgasm, all that sexual energy that we were talking about is released. Okay, and it then takes, depending who, again, which belief system you follow. Some even say up to 21 days to fully refill your body with that. Some say few days. So how about if you don't want to procreate, and especially for men, if they're getting older, they're going to be really, really feeling that energy dip even stronger. How about having an orgasm without ejaculation? And they're absolutely possible. I know for many men it can be, or for many women it can be a surprise, because that's not what we see in pornography. But ejaculation and orgasm are two separate events, actually, and we can separate them. So it's really, really, for men, so powerful and beautiful to learn to have those non-ejaculatory orgasms, because first of all, they can retain the energy, they can last longer, they can have multiple orgasms. And yeah, recently I was with a lover who doesn't ejaculate and didn't ejaculate for 2.5 months that we have been seeing each other. And what another beautiful thing that happened is that he was constantly desiring me, and there was this, powerful, energetic charge that was always there. And we could tap in and out of that anytime we wanted. And it was really, really juicy. And again, beautiful way to cultivate the polarity between lovers. So, what are some of the ways to do this? Well, really, I like to say um, some simple ones. They're not rocket science, but those are the things that we don't do. So, first of all, slowing down in lovemaking, slowing down with your self pleasure practice. I would actually invite all the men to start with the self pleasure practice. So it's much easier to train with yourself than with a partner, especially at the beginning. So setting up, even up to half an hour or even an hour to a play, starting with relaxing and embodiment practices so you can get out of your head and really, really get into your body. So, is it a bit of movement, or maybe a bit of yoga, or a bit of dancing, a bit of breath work, whatever works for you. Um, Especially the breath work and meditation, then, because we want to shut down that analytical mind, that neocortex, and come a little bit more into parasympathetic nervous system. And from that moment on, we want to start playing with the entire body. Let's not just focus all the time on the genitals. Okay, you can experience sensations and pleasure in the entire body, and then move really, really slowly. Once you start stimulating your genitals, going really, really slowly. And I like to really play with the idea of a pleasure scale from 1 to 10. 1, you're not excited at all. 10, you're having an orgasm. So we're not going to sprint from 1 to 10. Oh, it's over. No, we gonna really feel and pause each step along the way and really feel into it. Okay, I think I'm at 2. Let's pause here. How does it feel to be at a 2? Tingling. Okay, I can still talk, and there is that pleasurable sensation there. Let's breathe into it, relax into it, start breathing and sounding, and we're gonna start imagining that we are circulating that pleasure, that 2, all over our body. Let's do that a couple of times, again, with deep belly breathing, with a lot of awareness into sensations, not so much fantasizing. And then we're going to bring ourselves up a little bit to a 3 or a 4. And then we're going to pause again and repeat that. And then we can start riding the wave. What's also important is, gentlemen, that you learn where is your point of no return. Usually it's at the beginning around an 8. So you're going to get close to a point of no return, but then stay there and hover there without a need to ejaculate, and learn what that is. These are some of the great ways to start practicing. There is more to that, but this could be another separate um, episode of a podcast on this. So I'm going to leave it with that. Just with that few tips, you will start to feel the shifts and the change, and yeah, and start intuitively playing with that.
I love that. Now's a good time to segue, just for the women who are listening, the different types of orgasms, because as we know in our society, most of us women only know a few ways that we can orgasm.
Yeah.
So tell us about all the different orgasms that we can have.
Oh my God, there's so many beautiful orgasmic states we can go into. And one of my favorite ones, so some of the obvious ones, more obvious ones, clitoral type of an orgasm, which is not a vaginal type of orgasm. It's outside, right? So clitoral, that's where what most women experience. Then when we go inside of the vagina, we can have a G-spot orgasm, A-spot orgasm, or at the very end, cervical type of an orgasm. So there are different kind of, I would say, different lenses that you can look at orgasms and then classify them. So this one will be a physical lens in a way, which part of the body can be stimulated. So onto this list, we could also add breastgasms. Delicious. I love breastgasms. And really, for anyone who is a sensual erotic blueprint, you can have an eargasm, you can have a neckgasm, you can have a footgasm. Yeah, some of us are really, really sensual. I am. I love eargasms and neckgasms. Okay. So if you look at the different parts of the body, this is possible. Then you can also look at energy, right? So have a full body orgasm, or valley orgasm, which is the opposite of what we know, which is climax, which we call a peak orgasm. Then you can also have a crygasm, a laughgasm, a sadgasm, or an angergasm. Yeah, and really there's infinite number of possibilities, but those are some of the ones that I guide women through in my courses.
I've got an exciting offer for all of my listeners. The free Divine Daily Practices video series. Get simple practices to release anxious thoughts, sharpen your intuition, and rewire your nervous system in less than 10 minutes a day. Come on over to my website at divinelifestyles.com/divine daily practices. And over the next week, you'll receive a complimentary self-care system to drop into your authentic self and activate your divine intuitive wisdom. I hope you enjoy. So for the women that are listening that are like, what? Mind blown. What is a practice that they could start right away?
Right away. Yeah, I forgot about anal orgasm. Even
Oh,
that's
yes.
the first. Yeah. I always like to say start with a conscious self pleasure practice because that will really apply to everyone, women who are in partnerships or single women or women who are in a partnerships where the partner is resistant to doing the work. Everyone can self pleasure. And self pleasure will be not just 3 minutes, not just porn or vibrator. I really want it to be a high vibration masturbation. I want it to be a self love ritual. And I always recommend the easiest to start with 1 hour a week. Put it in your calendar so you know you have time. You can organize yourself. You can get privacy. You can set up beautiful space. And similar, like we talked about non ejaculatory orgasm with men, start with set and setting. It really is important. If you want to have a self-love ritual, make it so that it feels like you're gifting yourself love, and it can look different for each of you. Maybe a bath, maybe music, maybe candles, lighting, smells. And then start with either dancing or movement, then a little bit of breath work to get you even more in the body. Then key, activate your breasts and your heart before you even go anywhere near your genitals. The gateway to female sexuality is in her heart and her breasts, and only then start slowly playing with your genitals. And again, similar here, go slow, see where you at from 1 to 10, explore different type of touch, do things differently, ride at weight of pleasure, bring yourself to higher arousal, then rest, breathe, allow the energy to cool off, and then bring yourself up again. And I would love you to do this at least 3 times and observe, where are you at? Are you thinking about, where's your mind? Try to bring it to sensations in the body. Try to, I'll always like to say, bring some of the tools that you use in yoga to your self pleasure practice, pranayama. Really be aware of deep belly breathing, meditative focus, and awareness in the body. And you can also add a beautiful intention at the beginning. So I wouldn't make an orgasm the end goal here. I would have an intention of exploration of your body, of tapping into your pleasure, expanding your pleasure capacity. This can be some of the intentions. So you're not chasing the orgasm. And just that fact that you're not chasing the orgasm will shift so much, because you will be so much more present with the moment to moment sensation and pleasure. And this will really, this is a great way to start. And on my website and on my Instagram account, I even have some free practices that you can download and follow. And one of them is called Free Erotic Glow Activation. And they're free mini meditations. So just press play and follow along if that guidance was, you feel like it wasn't enough and you need a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, you're a total wealth of knowledge when it comes to tools. And what I like so much about your work is that you bring a sacredness into this world of
Mhm.
play. So I
Yeah.
wanted to talk a little bit more about that. You talk a bit about sacred wisdom and bridging that for modern intimacy.
Mhm. Yeah, because a lot of elements that I use, part of the trainings I've done, are based on Neotantra. So there, what we talked about, moving energy, and seeing sex as ritual, and seeing sexuality as a portal to self-realization and connecting to God, and seeing lovemaking with your partner as a divine union. All this comes from those belief systems. And then I also like to bring things that are practical and applicable into modern day lifestyle. So not everyone will always have a time to do 3 hour tantric ritual or half an hour of eye gazing, and you don't have to. So I also like to bring different elements, like a little bit of kink or a little bit of sensual play, and really give people practical tools that they can apply, even if the world of meditation, mindfulness is something new or foreign to them. So it's really, kind of something that everyone can start, because I truly believe that sex is such an important part of our life. And if we continue as a society to have a sex that is porn sex, junk food sex, instead of organic, nourishing, farm to table, fresh equivalent of sexuality, then it will be, we will remain in a place where there is a lot of violence and rape and disconnect. Let's call it like
Yeah.
that.
And I believe a lot of those things you just mentioned is probably why our society struggles so much with intimacy,
Hmm.
right? You want to touch on that a bit more? I know that you mentioned that porn is a part of that. I'd also
Yeah.
like you to talk a little bit about shame, how in
Yeah.
our culture there's a lot of shame around sexuality.
Yeah. Because if you really look at where we come from when it comes to a topic of sexuality, right? So many of us come from a religious background. I grew up in Poland, Catholic country, but I have so many clients from Latin America who also grew up in a Catholic environment, religion, right? Or I have Middle East clients. Even more suppressed, right, because of their belief systems. And if not that, often conservative parents who were also not taught anything and didn't really know how to educate us about sexuality or how to show affection in front of us, right? And then on top of it, you can add um, the whole let's say challenge around women not loving their bodies, right, and constantly comparing ourselves to completely unrealistic beauty standards. And women, there's so many statistics on this, but some even say that 90 something percent of women don't fully love their bodies, 71% of women don't like their breasts, right? So combining all this, and then we also want to add the history of trauma and sexual abuse, and some statistics say that there's 1 in 4 or 5 women that has a history of sexual abuse, for example, in Americas, right? So between all these categories, I feel like there is more than 90% of women can relate at least one of those, right? So taking that into account, how it's very difficult to have a celebratory healthy relationship with pleasure and sexuality, right? So yeah, there is a lot of shame around the body, a lot of shame around experiencing pleasure or being worthy of pleasure. And actually, I even forgot to add one more important aspect of it. We live in a society that prioritizes productivity over pleasure, that we are measured by the output and how much we can do and achieve, not so much how we can be. And I work with so many women who feel guilty to even schedule that 1 hour of self pleasure in the calendar, because
Mm,
they feel like there are more important things to do, that they are not worthy of it, that so many different things, right? So again, all this really makes our society um, be quite disconnected from a healthy and a full expression of sexuality.
yeah. What do you think is the difference between sexuality and sensuality?
Yeah, they're often so they're so often mixed up, and one of the reasons is censorship. And I actually, even on my Instagram account, have to use the word sensuality, although I really want to say sexuality because I might be suspended otherwise, and that is happening a lot everywhere, right? So I feel like we started to mix it up, but really sensuality is experiencing the world through the five senses, right? While sexuality is where we engage sexual energy. There is the drive, there's that primal energy, right? The desire. So, two different things. And I kind of feel we almost lost touch with sensuality. And we are so fast and goal oriented that often where there is something, we jump straight into sexuality, and there is no sensuality because we also live so much in our heads. People don't really experience that much sensations in their body. But when we start tapping into all the senses and we actually slow down to feel that soft touch on the skin, the smells, we listen into the sounds, it can be so juicy and so orgasmic. So sensuality can open the door for sexuality, but it doesn't have to. And in my courses, I teach a lot, and I have a lot of practices around sensuality and bringing back the importance of sensuality. And, so many people are actually, that's their erotic blueprint. If you look at the erotic blueprints, and also for me, I can again have an orgasm just from, stroking my neck or gently caressing and kissing my ear. So, yeah, two things that can uh, be coexist together, but can be separate. And we want to celebrate both.
Absolutely. You talk a lot about from sex to super conscious, the art of foreplay. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I know you touched on it a little bit.
So these are two different topics, actually, from sex to super consciousness. It's a title of a book by Osho, and it
Oh,
explains how we can use sexual energy to come to those higher states of consciousness and have our aha moments and use it as a self-realization portal. And that's what I kind of described at the beginning. My journey was. Now, then, the art of foreplay is a different thing, and again, similar with sensuality, we are so fast, live such a stressed, fast-paced life, and we want to get to the things straight away, and we're going to get to end goal, and then we're usually tired and just want to do other things and go to sleep. But foreplay is so important.
yeah.
Foreplay is so important, especially for us women, because we are receptive. And our sexuality is more yin, more receptive. And I always like to give that example of water and fire, right? Male sexuality is more young, more penetrative. And if you imagine a stove and if you light it up, the fire goes almost immediately, right? But if you put a pot with water, it's going to take a few minutes for that water to warm up and even longer to boil, right? And that's our yin receptive nature. So it's not because we're trying to be difficult. It's not because we are being a diva or being mean to you, but to our partners. It's our nature. And if we know how to honor that, we can just open women to such a more powerful expression of their sexuality and orgasmicness. And foreplay is a big part of that. And, you know, women need, there will be different, again, there are different ways to look at it. Some will say at least 20 minutes, some will say 45 minutes to be truly ready for penetration and enjoy it, right? And that's where that foreplay comes to it comes to forefront. And I can just stay with the foreplay for an hour or two and I'm happy there. But yes, let's please have more foreplay because it's really, really needed. It's, yeah.
And for those that are listening, how do you describe energetic lovemaking?
Yeah. So Some of us are more of sensual, energetic blueprints. Again, energetic blueprints. I talk a lot about this. Lady called Jaya came up with that kind of classification, which I really, really love and resonate with. There are five erotic blueprints. I talked a little bit about sensual. Another blueprint is energetic. I am also energetic. We have all five, but some will be, of course, more dominant than others. And that's where it's really easy for us to tap into that sexual energy. And actually, there's so many people that are energetic, but they don't know about it, right? But maybe you really get excited from anticipation. I can already be orgasmic from just anticipation of seeing my lover in a week. Um, Maybe playing little, teasing, anticipation, that can already make you orgasmic, just the energy of it, right? You can have orgasms without touching any part of your body. Again, what we talked about, those full body orgasms, you can really tap into that energy and start playing with it for. And then what you can do is also start playing it with that energy when you're with your partner. So one way to do it is what I described during your self-pleasure practice. You can circulate that sexual energy within yourself, and then you can also start exchanging it with your partner. And to me, this is like the most beautiful, divine way of connecting with a partner. When that energy is exchanged, you really, really feel like you're one. You go into this prolonged orgasmic state, and you're sky dancing together.
Yeah.
You are in those, you know, uh, blissful togetherness states. And what's so beautiful about it, that again, energy orgasms don't deplete you. They can last longer. They nourish you. They're really soul nourishing. They're not just a genital rash for a few seconds. They really light up every cell of your body. And it's so beautiful. It's so divine. This is, yeah, probably my favorite way of making love.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again,
Yeah.
I know it sounds a little bit out there, but I teach this in all my courses and in my online courses. And I'm just gonna give an example. Recently, I have a beautiful couple. I interviewed them. You can see that interview on the landing page of my couples course. And the gentleman is 84 years old, and he started to have those energy orgasms, full body orgasms, and then they started to have them together, and it's just the most beautiful thing. And they were like, wow, where were we? Why no one told us this before? So what I also love about this, that unlike the performative kind of high intensity type of sexuality, at some point you're not going to have enough stamina and energy to do that, while with age, energetic lovemaking, energy is there. And like this couple in their 80s, and they are making love energetically for hours. And how beautiful is that?
Amazing. I told you this at the retreat. I said you should be actually teaching this in schools.
Yeah,
And you were like, we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
yeah.
But I think we're on our way, because I think that if we can learn these tools at a younger age, we're set up for success. Now,
Yeah.
you've just inspired us a ton. Where do you get your inspiration?
And do you mean in sexuality or just in life?
I think in life.
In life. Where do I get my inspiration? I get inspiration from interesting people. And what was so powerful, living in Tulum over the last 7 years gave me access to some extraordinary people from all over the world who would come there. And I would be able to host them. I was working as a wellness director in Nomada Hotel, and I was hosting them, giving workshops. So there was tons of people who inspired me and really made a mark, and are partially responsible for where I am today. I get inspiration from traveling to interesting events. It's not just traveling for traveling. I've done this for many years. I like to travel for interesting events. um, where kind of extraordinary people come together with an intention. So it's intentional events, intentional traveling. Yeah, I listen nowadays to a lot of podcasts. I love that. It's so practical.
Mhm.
um yeah, I get inspired by my lovers also.
Yeah,
um yeah, that was a source of a huge inspiration recently.
I love that. So, as we're closing up here, I'd love to hear one of the most insightful pieces of advice you've ever received.
Hmm. Hmm. Received quite a few, but what just popped up immediately is start even though you're not ready.
Hmm.
And I know it's simple, but it sounds simple, but it's very challenging to actually implement. And yeah, I waited 15 years to quit my corporate world because I thought I was not ready. I didn't know what I want to do. I didn't know what's next. And then uh, I was in a really, really inspiring relationship where my ex partner, a powerful source of inspiration, indeed, taught me many things, and among of them, start when if you even if you're not ready, and that's why I started journey of sexuality, and that's how I just move forward in life now, because the right time is never there. We're never fully ready, and we only have one lifetime, so
The
let's
time
just
is
do it.
now.
Time is now.
The time
So
is
maybe
now.
that one, and
I
again, it
love
sounds easy, but to implement it takes a bit more courage and practice.
Absolutely. A lot of bravery for that. So you have so many amazing things going on. You have a huge product suite. Where
Mm,
can people find you online and learn more about your workshops, your retreats, your events, your
yeah.
so much?
I actually don't have that many products because what I noticed is that to really bring transformation, it takes time, and 3 weeks course, it's nice, but I want to deliver really, really big shifts in people's life, so I have less programs, but they're longer and deeper dives. So
Mhm.
I have two signatures programs. One is for women. It's a 3 months long program called Ladder to Bliss, and then I have a 6 months long academy for couples, which is called Ecstatic Lovers Academy. They're online, they're live, so it's not like you buy some videos that you will never watch. It's not how it works. I handhold you. We're together with a beautiful group of people who are on the same journey, which is actually really, really inspiring, although it might sound scary when you first listen about it. So many couples like, oh my God, will I just have to share with some other couple I never even seen, and then everyone is crying when things are over. It's like, oh my God, this was one of the most powerful, inspiring parts. So yeah, you can do this from anywhere where you are in the world. No excuses. I have clients literally from everywhere, from Qatar to Argentina and Alaska. Um, and then I have some smaller courses like Orgasmic Embrace. If you're not sure, get to my website or my Instagram and download my free practices: Erotic Glow for women and Soul Connector for couples, so you get a feel of how it works. And yeah, otherwise, I do speak at different events, but that is always a little bit more challenging to say upfront. So the best way is to follow me on Instagram, and there I update you on the latest events, or actually get on my newsletter, and I'll announce all the things there as well.
Amazing. I'll make sure to have all your links in the show notes. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure, and I hope to welcome some of you guys into my world and expand your orgasmic capacity and change the world one orgasm at a time.
I love that. And I will let you know she's amazing. She's the real
Mhm.
deal. And it's very safe and beautiful to work with Bibi. So definitely check
Thank you
her
so
out.
much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Divine Lifestyles Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you get your episodes. If you really loved this episode, screenshot it and share it on social media. It will help us to continue to make an impact. With gratitude and love always, keep illuminating your path.